Okay, today is January the 9th, 2008. My name is Tanya Finchum, and I'm with Oklahoma State University Library, and we're conducting an oral history project called Women of the Oklahoma Legislature. And I'm here in Tulsa, Oklahoma to talk with Pam Peterson, who was elected to the Oklahoma House of Representatives in 2004 and reelected in 2006. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let's start by having you tell us a little bit about your childhood and then we'll work forward.
All right. I was born in New York City and lived there until I was 18 when I came out to school here to Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I quickly fell in love with Tulsa and Oklahoma, and I thought I really think I'd like to stay here. So I grew up in a home that was very active politically as far as citizen involvement. My parents weren't elected officials or anything, but I learned early on that our freedoms are to be protected and we need to be involved. That's how our system was set up, and apathy is a terrible thing, and unfortunately I think that is sunk in nowadays through a lot of apathy in politics. And I was raised to be, let's get involved, support the candidate that shares your values and your principles and work for them. So I started working in campaigns at the age of 12.
Oh, okay.
So I was knocking on doors at 12, and then in my late 40s when I ran for myself, I was still knocking on doors. But so it was just part of growing up and part of my family. We had many discussions about politics around the dinner table. We were always talking about things like that. So I grew up in that type of a home and really had a great childhood. Lived in a suburb of New York City and had access to the waterfront, and it was a very suburban area, and it was a nice place to grow up, and yet had access to go into Broadway shows before they were $50, $60 a ticket. They were $8 a ticket sometimes. I'd get front row seats. And so I grew up in that kind of environment, exposed to a lot of things in the arts, and actually had a real love for drama and singing. My mom sang on the radio on a national radio show in the 1940s. And she has a great singing voice, and taught me to sing. Not as good as she is, but so we even performed in hospitals at time when I was a child, USO type shows. So I grew up with that part of me too, just involved in theater, school plays, community theater, and then I came out to ORU. And I was a communications major in telecommunications and worked in the television area at ORU when they were producing their shows, and worked part-time in there. And as well as I was in shows. I was, my senior year, the highlight for me in drama was I was Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady. And so that was a really wonderful part to have and a great memory.
Did you have siblings?
I had one brother.
Older, younger?
He's younger than me, and he's living in another state, unfortunately, and I'm very proud of him. He served in the Marine Corps for 4 years, and he's a great brother.
Well, in high school, did you run for class officer? Or
That's interesting. Most people I find out, have that kind of background. I really didn't. I was very involved in other races politically, in the Senate race.
Bigger pictures.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because that was really fun for me, and I thought I can really make a difference in the real world, and I was more involved in theater when I was in high school, as far as the school life there. But one interesting race that might be of interest, when Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, he was the U.S. Senator, of course, from New York, and that was 1968. And in 1970, there was a U.S. Senate race to replace his seat, and it was a very interesting race. I'm a Republican, but in the New York area, they had a conservative party, and the conservative party candidate was James Buckley, who was the brother to Bill Buckley, who we all know, and totally different personality, really, but very conservative and Republican. And I worked in his campaign, walked the streets, worked in the campaign office. I was just 15 years old, 1970, and had just had the best time. Had a watch party at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, and we won. And it was just like absolutely shocking to all of us, but it was a three-way race between a liberal Democrat, a liberal Republican, and a conservative. And so he won and served in the U.S. Senate. And that was one of the most exciting campaigns that I was involved in, because it truly was an underdog race, and yet we won. And it was just exhilarating and just fun. And I think I really got the bug after that campaign.
Did you get to visit him in D.C. while he was in?
I didn't. Then I was just focused on school and went off to college here in Tulsa.
Why Tulsa then?
Well, I sought out a school. I wanted a Christian school that was liberal arts and had a strong communications department. And I came out to visit ORU and just fell in love with it. Fell in love with the people. It just was a great place. It is a great place. So I just knew that this was where I needed to be.
And after your degree, what did you do?
After my degree, I met my husband. We got married a few months after my graduation, and he was off to medical school in the University of Minnesota. So we lived up in Minneapolis, and I worked for a TV station in the Twin Cities area, which was a lot of fun. And also did some television commercials and industrial type films. There's a lot of companies up there. I worked a little bit for 3M and General Mills and some banks and commercials, and it was fun and helped pay the bills a little bit.
And then you moved back here then?
Well, we had a few more detours. We had residency, went back to New York for that, and then we lived in Wisconsin for a couple of years prior to coming back here. We always really both of us loved Tulsa. And that, I think, was always our goal, to try to get back and raise our family here. It's a great place. But, as you know, with training and schooling, you don't always get to pick where you're living. So then we lived a few years in Madison, Wisconsin. And that's an interesting, as far as politically, I'll segue into that. I had 2 small children. And I got involved it's a capital city, as you know, and it's very politically active. And I would read the paper every day, and I'd say, we've got to do something about this, or we've got to do something. I just was always so moved every time I'd read or listen to the radio. And I thought, this is a small enough town that I think people can get involved and make a difference. Well, Concerned Women for America came to town, and they needed someone to kind of keep tabs on things happening at the Capitol in Madison, and not a paid position, strictly volunteer. So I did that, and I got to testify before committees and learn about legislation. And little did I know that I'd be running down the road here in Oklahoma. But it gave me great perspective, and in fact, got to know Senator Russ Feingold through the process. He was my state senator. We didn't always agree, but we had a very respectable, cordial relationship, and it was a great experience.
And then bring us up to the point where you decided to run.
Okay. Well, when I came back to Oklahoma, I got involved in the Republican Party and worked in, I think my first campaign was with Senator Nichols, just, volunteered for him in 92, and then, worked in, I think, helped Jim Inhofe and Steve Largent, and, just tried to do what I could to help good candidates win election. And from there, I also was a national delegate in 92 to the Republican National Convention in Houston, Texas. And that was a fun experience. And from there, I became first congressional district vice chairman in the party. And that person is responsible for the first congressional district, which now is expanded up to Bartlesville. But at the time, it was just the Tulsa area. And from there, we put on a convention which we will be doing this year in '08, to elect delegates that will represent Oklahoma in the Republican National Convention from the Tulsa area. So I was working there, and then I became Tulsa County Republican Chairman in 2003. So that was a very interesting experience. All volunteer, but also those volunteer jobs take a lot of time, and it's dealing with people, and I really enjoy working with people and meeting new people, and so I had a good experience. So from there, I just did that temporarily. It really wasn't something I wanted to do long term, and just went back. My daughter was a senior in high school, and I thought I'm just going to enjoy the end of her high school, and I didn't really quite know exactly what I was going to do from there. And Hopper Smith, who served very well House District 67, he decided, he's a lieutenant colonel with the National Guard, and when his men went over to Afghanistan, he says, he could have had taken privilege and not gone because he was serving the state in the capacity of the House of Representatives. So he could have turned that down, but he didn't. And he says, I'm going to go if my men are going to go. And I just really admire that. Great American, great statesman. And so his seat was vacated at that point. And I had been very active, and a few people said, well, why don't you run for that? And I said, well, I hadn't even thought about it, at the moment. And I took some time. I counseled with some friends that I trust. And of course, my husband was the main one. Prayed about it. I really didn't want to step out if this is something that I wasn't supposed to do or God didn't want me to do. And so I took a little bit of time there thinking about it and decided, well, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I'll lose. And I'll still go back to my family and my friends, and they love me. So it's not that big of a risk, really. So I'll just go for it. So I did, and I had 3 other opponents.
Male, female?
Male opponents, and I won. It was a special election in January 13th, 2004, and I won with 68% of the vote. So I just was so grateful, and it's a very humbling experience, doing something like that and putting your name out there and knocking on doors and asking people for their vote. And but it was a great experience, and I'm just honored to be there. But
did you have a campaign manager?
I did. I mean, it was someone that was a real good friend of mine that helped me, and it was really a kind of a grassroots campaign, and knocking on doors. And you probably heard that from the other folks. Yeah, that's what you have to do. You have to knock on those doors. So a lot of it depended on me, and I had some good endorsements too. I was very humbled by that. I had some very good people that put their neck out and endorsed me, which was helpful in my mail pieces.
Do you have a favorite story from the campaign trail?
Oh, favorite story. Oh, goodness. No, I nothing really stands out to me other than, well, it's kind of an interesting, my daughter turned 18, and she voted in that special election. She turned 18 in October, and the next election that she could vote in was mine. So her very first vote was cast for me.
That's pretty neat.
So that's kind of a fun story I like to tell.
What was it when you ran for re-election? Was that a little bit different than?
Well, I haven't had an opponent since that first run. So the way it is, if you file, and if nobody else files, you're automatically in. So.
Has any other female held the seat from the district? Well,
actually, Joan Hastings had 67, but it was a different configuration at that time. We've really grown south in Tulsa, right? So it's little different lines, but I think she actually held 67, the number.
Well, during session, do you live here or live in Oklahoma City?
I live in Oklahoma City with another female rep. And we have an apartment for those 4 months.
And so describe a typical day. How early do you get up?
People say describe there is no typical day. I I've yet to see a typical day, and as soon as you may have it planned out, a typical day, but I guarantee you it's not going to be the way you've mapped it out. It just doesn't happen that way. There's things that are changing up there at the Capitol. The Senate might do something, and then you're going to have to caucus and reconfigure. So everything is in a change of flux, I guess. So it's not a typical day, but you go to the Capitol Monday through Thursday during session, first Monday in February to the last Friday in May. And that's our session. And I come home on the weekends, and those are treasured times. Yeah.
Do you live somewhere where you come down Lincoln Boulevard toward the Capitol?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's quite, I mean, every day just to see that building and think, wow, I have an office there. It's very humbling, and it's an awesome feeling.
Well, talk a little bit about your swearing-in day.
My swearing-in day, well, because it was a special election, I was the only one. So I had the privilege of inviting my family and friends and could fill the chamber if I wanted. And it was really, really fun. We have a great video of that. Because I did. I had family and friends there just in the chamber, as opposed to the normal swearing in where 101 of us are taking the oath together at our desks with just family and friends in the gallery above. So it was really special. And who is now Chief Justice Jim Winchester swore me in. He wasn't chief at that time, but he swore me in. Of course, his wife I served with in the State House, Susan Winchester. And so that was special, and it was just a great day. It was really exciting.
And did you have an election? I'll back up. I should have asked about the election night. Did you have a watch party?
I had a watch party at my house. Yes, and it was just a blur, I guess you could say. A lot of people came, and some of the state reps from the area, and some of the other ones, came to support me. And I had Representative Fred Perry at the time, who's now County Commissioner Fred Perry. He actually put together a board, and he was tallying up all the precincts as they were coming in for me, and I've saved that. That's kind of a special thing to have. Yeah.
Well, where's your office in the Capitol?
I'm on the 3rd floor, room 303.
Has it changed since the first?
Oh yes, when I first came, I had Hopper Smith's old office on the 5th floor. And of course, when I came in, the Republicans were in the minority still. And then my next session, we were in the majority. So there was quite a change. And so we had different offices at that time. But this is my 3rd office, and I like it. I hope I get to stay.
You'll be doing a campaign this summer if someone
Yes,
files.
yes. Everybody's up. All the House members are up.
So if you had a special election, then would you be considered a member of the freshman class for 03?
Technically, I guess, but I'm all by myself, so I say I'm in a class by myself.
I was trying to figure out how many other women you might have come in with. So I can go back and look at the books and figure that out.
Yeah, I really don't. It is. I'm a little bit of a misfit in that, because they take their class pictures lots of times in the front of the chamber, and I came in by myself, but I was very well received, and I've been very appreciative of my colleagues.
So you don't get to tag along with any of the other ones?
Well, not technically. I guess they would include me, but I usually don't get up and have my picture taken because I really didn't come in at the same time. So I'm all by myself.
We need to do one with special election.
Yeah.
Folks then.
Just me now. It used to be Fred Perry. He also came in a special election.
Well, do you remember the first time you presented a bill on the floor?
Yes, my first time I did not have a bill because I came in a special election, so I missed the deadline. So my first session, I didn't introduce anything. So I had to wait till the next time. But I was very proud of the next session. I introduced the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, the Lacey Peterson bill in Oklahoma, and that was I was very proud of that we were able to recognize that unborn child as a second victim, because women are subjected to a lot of violence when they're pregnant, and it's a very important bill. So I introduced that. It ended up getting enveloped in a bigger pro-life bill, but it was a neat experience to be involved in that.
Any on the floor actually doing it though? Any nerves or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it is. I mean, each time you get up there and you realize, everybody's watching you, and you don't want to, you want to do it right. So yeah, there's those nerves and those jitters that I think probably are good. It's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too cocky and think that I never feel that way. I just, look at it as an opportunity to try to serve my district and make good public policy in the state of Oklahoma. And I take that responsibility very seriously. So, yeah, I get a little nervous.
Getting a little easier with each one?
Yeah, it's, yeah, sure. You get a little more comfortable with the process. Of course, we've changed the rules. That was something that happened. We had a different set of rules when I first was elected because we were in the Democrat majority. And then when the Republicans took over and Todd Hyatt was the first speaker, we changed a lot of the rules. So I was really trying to learn those first set of rules. And then we got a new set of rules the very next time. And then they've since been modified with our new speaker, Lance Cargill. So yeah, it's, you really need to learn the rules. That makes the whole process a lot easier.
And you were the majority whip?
Yes, I was under the first Republican majority in 83 years. That was a real honor.
Well, what did that entail? I'm not sure.
Well, it's basically just trying, there's certain votes, there's things that happen kind of quickly that you want to get a pulse on what your caucus is, where they're at on a particular issue, and you're going to have to, maybe try to change their mind if they're feeling one way, if you feel this is an important agenda item and you really need this. And so it's your job to you have your group that you are communicating with on a regular basis.
And then tell a little bit about committees that you've been on.
Well, my first committee assignment was I was chairman of the Career Tech Committee. And that was a great experience because I learned a lot about that system and what a jewel it is really in Oklahoma and how it's recognized worldwide, which I hadn't realized. But now we've changed the committee structure. We have subcommittees now under the new leadership and regular committees. So Career Tech has been incorporated into the Higher Ed Committee. And currently I serve on that committee. I chair the subcommittee on children and families. I also serve on human services and serve on the subcommittee on criminal justice. And I chaired last year the task force dealing with sexual violence, to stop sexual violence.
And then out of the task force, you usually come up with a bill, Alexa.
Yes. And last year we came up with a bill that actually passed and is current law, which I'm pleased with, dealing with the CLEAT hours, the CLEAT training hours, the police hours. That what we found in the course of the task force was that police officers were not sufficiently trained in rape and sexual violence cases, and many times felt a little insecure going to or those kinds of when they had to be called in to go to those reports. And so we thought, wow, well, we can certainly improve that system by increasing the CLEAT hours for sexual violence training. So we've got at least 6 hours now in addition to the CLEAT hours that we have for all police officers in the state. So I think that's a positive change. And we tried to get a coordinating council. There's some ongoing things that we're looking at that we weren't able to implement right away. But as you know, a lot of times it takes years. It's a process, yes. And I think, it's important to keep that perspective.
Anything currently in the middle that you're working on that you want to talk about?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's where we're in the middle of right now on our bills. And I'm just trying to get them all lined up as to what we're going to be actually what I'm going to be actually introducing this year.
Have you noticed any obstacles
To
to just being there? I mean, besides being new and having to learn the rules as they change, but being from Tulsa or being a woman or being
yeah,
anything.
well, I'm one of 12 women in the house out of 101, which, is interesting, and it's an honor in its own way, too. It's been a good experience. I think my male colleagues have been very fair with me. I can't really complain, so it's been a positive experience. Let's see, the obstacles. Sometimes I do believe Tulsa gets a little shortchanged.
I've heard that several times.
And, and I think it's, Oklahoma City is the capital city. And most recently, we've heard in the newspaper about the medical examiner's office here in Tulsa. And, I think there's a little bit of competition there. So we do try to stand up for Tulsa when we can as the Tulsa delegation. And I think that is a challenge. Plus the urban versus rural legislators. They have different issues many times than the urban areas, and there are more rural legislators than there are urban ones. So, those are challenges that sometimes, occur. We're trying to get something passed we think is really great, and the rural people think this is going to be awful for us. And so those are challenges that are real.
I guess there's a balance at some point.
Yes, yeah.
I'm trying to tip it one way.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Having to negotiate. Let's see, what else? I had been told to ask if you were a Girl Scout.
I wasn't.
I hadn't included that on any of mine, but several people have been, so they said
I buy their cookies.
start asking the rest of them. So we've done that. I didn't figure you would have mentioned it earlier. Not everybody was. Okay. And both of your children were already out of high school then by the time you ran?
Well, my daughter was a senior, and so she was like, "Go for it, Mom."
So you didn't have to juggle with childcare and all that.
No. And I think that is I admire the women that do that. For me, that would have been a real challenge, and I probably would have been a real barrier for me to run.
Sure.
Because being from Tulsa and having to live in another city, that I don't think I'd be willing to do that.
Do you have a political philosophy you want to share with us?
Well, yeah, I really am a strong believer in our Constitution and keeping to the founders' principles of limited government, and I see a direction in our country going to more and more government control of things, and I'm very concerned about that. So I wanted the government to get out of the way when it needs to, and support the family as much as possible, because that is the foundation of our society, of our state. And I see that crumbling, and as the family crumbles around us, so are a lot of our other things that are very near and dear to us in our government. So we need to empower the family as much as possible.
Well, that some of your goals going in was to do work in those areas.
Yes, and absolutely. Absolutely.
Try to do.
Yeah.
After you've served your 12 years, what do you plan? Have you thought that far ahead?
No,
What's next?
I just try to look at what's in front of me. I didn't see this on the horizon for me a few years ago either. So I'm very content serving in the House, and I don't know what the future holds.
When you're campaigning, is the biggest issue money? I mean, having enough to do. Well, you haven't had to.
Yeah, and
So I guess
that's the least favorite thing, I think, for most of us, is raising money.
Right.
Nobody likes to do it. You have to do it to get your mail out and all of that. But that's probably the least favorite part of a campaign. It is for me.
And I understand the incumbents. It's a little easier for.
Excuse me?
Being an incumbent, it's a little bit easier to.
Yeah.
To do that.
Right. But yeah, that definitely is not fun.
Did you have a slogan when you ran? Did you have a slogan?
I
It
didn't.
was so short.
No, I didn't.
Colors on your campaign signs?
I had blue and gold.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any dog stories or horror stories from the campaign?
I haven't been bitten by a dog yet. I heard other people have been. But no real horror stories. Actually, it was a very positive experience going door to door.
Well, if the election was in February, then you were having to campaign between November and December during the busy.
Yeah, I do. Well, I do remember walking on icy steps in a very hilly neighborhood one time, and going, "Oh, I hope I don't fall and break my leg or something." But it went okay. And most people were like, "I can't believe you came out in this weather." And I said, "Well, I don't have a choice. The election's in a week." So, yeah, it was kind of challenging to work through the holiday schedule. You didn't want to interfere or step on people's toes, or definitely not when OU or OSU were playing football either. I had to be careful about that. We didn't want to make people mad when we ring the doorbell in the middle of the game. So I'd kind of listen in my car radio if there was a game going on, and if there was a commercial break, then I'd run up to the door and ring the bell.
Or halftime.
Yeah, or halftime. That's right. I just didn't want to offend people during those precious moments of a game.
You have to think about those things.
Yeah, little things like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, once you got there, did you have a mentor?
I did. I had an excellent mentor, Mark Leota, who lost last year. Was a major player in the transportation bill in the transportation funding that we got accomplished, and great statesman. I miss him terribly, but he was great. Now, because I came in all by myself, usually freshmen have freshman orientation and classes, and I was just put out on the floor, and I had to ask a lot of questions, and I did, and I still do. I think it's good to ask questions.
But let's back up a little bit. Then, as you were growing up in politics and stuff, did you have any role model at that point that you were that you admired, or that you followed their?
Well, actually, my dad, he really inspired me to continue. He lives here in Tulsa, and both my parents do.
They do too, huh?
Yeah, and he's still a great source of encouragement and wisdom for me, but he's been a great inspiration. He keeps up. He's 86 years old, and he is up on everything, sharp as a tack.
Good sounding board then.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah.
That's good. They followed you here too. And well, I'm not sure how to ask this too. They had asked me to be sure, see if there's any difference in the culture of maybe after 5 o'clock. If the women hang together and the men hang together, if there's any interaction there.
Well, there's usually there's a lot of dinners to go to, so then you're together.
Right.
Sometimes we've gone out as a group, men and women. Let's go see this movie. So a group of us will go out to a movie. It doesn't happen that often, but occasionally it does. But yeah, the men, they do whatever they do, I'm sure, and the women. A lot of the women have young children and commute and go back home, and so for that reason, the evenings, they're not around. And those of us that are here from out of town, we hang together.
Well, if you share an apartment with someone else too, that's
we do things
important
together.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do a lot of things together.
I was just curious because Hannah Atkins had said that she would have breakfast with the men, and they called her a tea sipper, I think is what because she didn't drink coffee.
Oh.
And they would do breakfast and discuss who was going to vote how and what issues were, moving those up to the top. So I was just curious if that's still something like that still happened.
Well,
not for breakfast.
Breakfast is hard to get people going early in the morning, but there's a lot of breakfasts at the Capitol. Different groups come in and serve breakfast at times.
And one of the older ones mentioned a cheese thing at 5. When session was over, they had to go over to some hotel and they had a wine and cheese session for like an hour or so.
Every night?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, it doesn't happen now.
Well, I don't know. I haven't been.
Well, no one in the last 5 or 6 years have mentioned that, so I was just curious if that's just for that
I don't know.
period of time that she was there.
I hadn't heard about it.
So a lot of discussions went on there, and then the next day things moved along faster. So
Oh, okay.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, any advice for women that are thinking about going into politics?
Oh, advice. Well, I think you just need to really weigh all the challenges that you're going to face as a woman. I think, as a woman, you probably have more responsibilities if you do have children and things that fall on your shoulders as far as, coordinating. And so for me, I waited till after my children were grown because that's how it worked for me, being out of town that often and having a supportive husband. If you're married, make sure that you have the full support of your family because otherwise it won't work. I mean, you do see people that have trouble in their marriages because of the separation. And it's not ideal to be apart for 4 months like that. So be sure you don't go out there without the full support of your loved ones. You need that. You need them back home supporting you at all times. And so I would suggest making sure that's the right decision for your family before you launch out into it. And in the meantime, there's many ways to get involved on the local level. And so, a lot of people think, I want to do this way up here and feel they can't. And so then they sit back and don't maybe do anything. So I just encourage you to get involved on a very local level, a city council race, even a school board race. It's quite educational, and you meet a lot of people and you make a lot of contacts, and who knows where that will lead eventually.
Oh, any fun stories from in actual hours in the house?
Oh my! Oh yeah, we laugh a lot. When you're dealing with that many people, and I've told my husband sometimes I feel like I've joined a fraternity, because of these, all these guys, and and it's it's fun. I can't think of something right off the top of my head. I'd have to really think about it, but we do I think enjoy each other for the most part, and there's a camaraderie there. Just we all got there the same way. So we're all kind of really equals in that regard, whether you're male or female, and we all still have one vote, so it's kind of an equalizer, isn't it?
And they still have mouth of the house.
Yes, they do, and that's a fun. The last day or the last day of session, we have that little ceremony, and it's just kind of fun.
Have to release some of that. I mean,
well, yeah.
From what I understand, you have stacks and stacks of bills to read, and
right,
not enough time really to.
Yeah, it's a tense week that last week, and so it is a little bit of a tension reliever.
And did you notice if you had to change your wardrobe?
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I had to get suits. There's a dress code at the Capitol, and yes, absolutely, I had to get more suits.
Warm ones, from what I understand.
Well, I don't mind it. I'm at the age where I like it kind of cool, so it works for me. Cooler the better.
I've had many complain about how cold it is.
Yeah, it depends where you sit in the chamber too.
Oh, where?
Mm-hmm. And then we have these little fans, and sometimes if you're near other members put on a fan, and that fan could be blowing on you, and then you're going to be colder than others. But
well, did you ride the train from the?
I did. What an honor! That was really fun to be part of the centennial.
Yeah, talk a little bit. I haven't even wanted to talk about it on tape, so if you want to tell a little bit.
Yeah, we took a train from Oklahoma City to Guthrie, and Guthrie had been the first capital in Oklahoma to commemorate the 100 years of our state, and it was just an exciting time. We met at Guthrie there and had a mock ceremony or a session there, and it was great. It was just neat to think back of what it must have been like 100 years ago to be part of that. It was a fun day.
Did everyone in the legislature get to do that, or just?
Well, everybody was invited. There were some members missing, and for whatever reason they couldn't make it. But I would say we had a majority of the members in the House and the Senate there.
That sense of history had to be
Oh.
overwhelming.
Yeah, it really was. It was humbling to think, wow, we're able to serve in the legislature at this time, a special time.
And then you would have been in Oklahoma when the bombing occurred.
Yes.
That was before you got
Yeah, I was not in the
into
legislature.
the activities of politics. I've asked some about that too.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do you find that your support network when sessions going on is more the colleagues there, or do you still have some major interaction with your friends here?
Yeah, well, it takes a little more effort because you're not really here a good part of the week. So you, we have a great network. I mean, I have made some wonderful friends there in the legislature. And every year when a few of them are either termed out or, you just kind of get a little choked up and say, oh, I'm really going to miss that person now. They're not going to be here anymore. And you're kind of like a family for those few months, or being on a team together. You're working towards common goals, especially in your individual caucuses, and so you're working to achieve many of the same things and working hard together day in and day out. So there's a real close bond that you develop with the people that you work with here, and in probably a different work setting than most other jobs.
Have you had the same assistant the entire time?
No, I had one that retired to be a grandma, and another one last year that was just, she had been the speaker's assistant. I was so honored to get her for that time, and she was kind of ready to retire and be a grandma also. And so now I have a brand new assistant, and I'm very honored to have her. She's going to work out great. So this is my third one. Yeah.
I think that's a big key from what I understand too. If they know your district.
Right.
Constituents.
Right. Yeah, that's important.
Do you have very many visit you?
I do. Many times they come, say with the teachers or schools, insurance. They many times will come with a group, an advocacy group, and they'll be my constituents in that. And a few times they'll just come up on their own, But I think because I'm in Tulsa, they know they can reach me in Tulsa and call me, and then I try to meet them on a Friday in my district.
So Fridays you may show up anywhere in your district then.
Yeah.
Whoever asks.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that go on. There are other groups or schools, or the chamber has many events, and they hold them on Fridays during the session because they know we're back in our districts, and there's a more likely chance that we'll attend.
So it's not a 4-day week, 4 work day.
No, it ends up being Friday day in your district.
And Saturday and Sunday too.
It could be. I try to keep Sunday totally free, and Friday pretty much ends up being a lot of work, work related visits, which is fine. That's what I'm there to do.
It's probably fun at that point, being hand to hand and face to face with people here.
Yeah, I really enjoy when your position or your office is able to make a difference in somebody's problems. There's been some issues that have come up this week. You make a few phone calls, and hopefully your office and your contacts that you can make a difference for that person. And those are very rewarding moments, when you can help. We had a situation 2 years ago, and it was too long of a process, but we ended up I got a bill and an appropriation for these constituents who had their gas shut off for months due to a gas leak that was not related to a PSO or anything. It was an unknown gas source. And so, without going into all the details, but these people, lost their heat in the middle of winter. And we had to find a way to remedy that situation. And actually, my office talked to the homeowners on a daily basis during that session. So, that was something that we were able to, I think, rectify for them in the end, but it took a while. And working with the Corporation Commission and it was a long process, but we were able to, I think, get a good result in the end. And that's always very gratifying because you think, well, I was able to make a difference in somebody's life.
Right, it really shouldn't have kind to go to that level, though, should it?
Well, sometimes it has to because there's so many layers, and what happens oftentimes is everybody's passing the buck. Oh, I'm not responsible for that, and this one's, and so that's why you need somebody on the state level to say, okay, we need a coordination plan here. How are we going to? This is a problem that we need to address, and we just can't keep punting it off to the next person because they're not doing anything with it. So that's when we can coordinate something hopefully to make a difference.
Let's see. You say if I ask anything we need to ask. Can you think of anything we need to cover? Let's see. Talked about.
Well, if you forget something, you can always come back and see me at the Capitol in February.
Well, your office in Tulsa, is it at your home or is it actually?
Yeah, I don't have an office.
I was curious if districts had one that everybody used. If you're there, you use it. If you're not,
no, that would be way too expensive.
You would always think it could be at the courthouse, just about though. City Hall. No. I need to learn a little bit more about the courthouse. Let's see. How has your life changed since you've been elected?
I really don't feel like I've changed that. My schedule has changed.
Right. That's a good way of asking.
Yeah, my schedule has changed, but I really don't feel any different. I still have the same friends, and they're more valuable to me now. I think there's people that are nice to you at the Capitol because they have to be. And then when you're out of office, you'll never hear from them again, and you'll never, and that's just the nature of the business. So your friends at home and the ones that you had for years become even dearer to you because you realize they're your friends because they like you and not because of your position.
Right, you've been interested in taking this next step.
Running
for election.
Oh, I've had a few conversations with some folks that have been very curious about the process and may have an interest in the future. And don't live in my district, though. So they wouldn't run against me.
12 years.
Yeah.
Are your children interested in it?
Not really. No.
Have they been to see you in action?
My daughter has, yes. Yeah, she's, my son lives out of state, so we see him at different times when we're not in session, so.
Well, my last question then is, and it may be a little too early to ask you this, but you might be able to respond a little bit, is when history is written about you, what would you like for it to say?
Wow.
And it doesn't have to be just about your service in the House, it could be whatever.
That's something to really ponder. You don't want to take that too lightly. That's an important question.
You can limit it to just your service if you want, if that's easier.
Yeah. That I did the best that I could with what I was given in the time that I was given and showed God's love to those around me as well, and made maybe a small difference in some way to improve public policy in our state. And I guess
that's good. I've had some interesting answers to that, so that yours is fine. Just fine.
I'm sure I could think of a lot more things.
Yeah,
Never been asked that question.
It's easier to ask the women that have already served their term and have moved, 5 years removed, and then they can have a better perspective on that. Oh, who was Gusty? I was supposed to ask, who was Gusty?
Oh, Gusty. Who asked that?
I don't know. Someone said, be sure to ask her about that.
Oh.
I call him.
Oh.
It was helping me do some research.
Okay. Well, Senator Pruitt actually introduced that Gusty for the state cartoon. Don Wood said, who was a weather person here in the Tulsa area for years and years. He still lives here, And so it was Scott Pruitt that initiated all of that, and then he asked me to carry it in the house to have Gusty in.
Is it still going, or is it just a one-time thing?
Well,
a cartoon.
It's the state cartoon.
See, I've got to go look a little bit more.
Yeah, and it originated in the Senate and then came over to the House. So it was Scott Pruitt that really started that, and I'm not quite sure how he was the one to start it. I don't know all the background on that, but I was just the House author. So it was already past the Senate and it come over to the House. I didn't initiate it in the House.
So it's been fairly recent occurrence.
Yeah, it was 2 sessions ago, probably.
And had been a cartoon before. No.
Well, he used to draw Gusty. Are you familiar with what it is?
No.
Okay, well, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. In fact, a lot of establishments, in fact, little Mario's Pizza place on 51st and Harvard has a Gusty picture right there by the cash register. And Gusty's throwing a pizza. And, Gusty would reflect the weather. He would draw, if it was going to rain, he'd draw this umbrella and rain or sunny day. And so every night he would do that on the weather and draw this little cartoon.
That's a funny side story.
Yeah, funny side story.
I should have looked in a little more before I asked it to. Okay.
I'm going to talk to Scott Pruitt about how that all began.
Well, I know you have to co-author from.
Yeah, I was a co-author.
From one side of the
right
chamber to the other. And some of your main issues you wanted to attack were school accountability and reform measures. I read that early on. Have you done some of that, or still planning to do some of that?
Well, yeah, everything that we do up there is a team effort. So we have 25%, I was told, of the House members have been in education. Either they're administrators, principals, teachers. So most of the time, those kinds of measures I defer to. They introduce education type measures, but I'm definitely supportive of their ideas, and that's what I think the general public. If you introduce a bill, that's great, but you need a whole team. You need to get it through committee. You need to, So I'm working with my colleagues to achieve those goals.
Well, with your husband being a physician, do you find yourself pulled toward the health?
I'm interested in that field, obviously, and very much so. It's an important issue for our state.
So you'd at least know one or two people to ask for information if you needed to on a particular health issue. I'm just trying to think. Besides education folks, you'd have your husband's field to go through to.
Mm-hmm. And I served on the Medicaid Reform Task Force 2 years ago as well, which was very educational.
Well, I don't have anything else. I've asked all that I've put on my list.
Okay.
I need to close by saying thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
It was fun getting to know you and hearing your story.
Yeah, same here. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity.
And hopefully after your 12 years or 3, we'll do this again and cover the time period, I hope.
Well, great.
Best wishes.
Thank you very much.